thank you all for joining us, especially you, Bill and Helen. All right. Last week, we were fighting for a quorum, so I'm glad to see so many people here. We went, I hope everybody had a chance to send over, look over the revisions Helen sent us all. And if you want, if there's any questions or discussion involved in that, we could bring that up now. One of my concerns is we set a minimum of 25% commercial and a maximum in the notes here. I'm sorry, Helen. I want to say you said like a third, a 33%. But I think we need to be able, yeah, I see a minimum of 25 and maximum of 30. But I think we need to consider raising the 30% to the 50% because some of the buildings, and I know I use Mamma Mia's a lot, but if they were just to add a couple apartments over there, over the top of it, we'd still want them to be able to fit into the necessary requirements in regards to this.
Which sections are you referring to now?
It is section, it's the second section of, I'm sorry, it's 27XX Part C on page 2 of our updated draft bylaw.
Yeah, definitely. I think we can definitely raise it. There just should be a maximum. That way, someone just doesn't do all commercial. So, yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, Ellen.
How about now? Better?
That's better, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think we can definitely raise it. It just I think there should be a maximum in place. That way, it's all not just a commercial development.
Okay, so maybe over half for the board to consider, because, for instance, if they wanted to put just a couple of apartments above Mamma Mia's, they wouldn't necessarily have to fall outside of their ability to use the TDR bylaw.
Right.
Any
Yeah.
recommendations, please, Jen?
Yeah, no, I had the same thought that all of our receiving area tends to be like basically commercial. So if we're limiting it at less than 50%, essentially we're changing commercial districts to residential districts.
Right.
So, yeah, I think a maximum of 50 at least would be okay. Otherwise, we're converting uses.
Right.
So
but,
I
yeah,
think it definitely should go at least to 50.
I would lean towards even higher because, like, again, if Mamma Mia's just wanted to put 2 apartments over, and that only took up 30% of the available overhead space. But should we even put a maximum on it?
I don't know.
Well, I think, if I may, sorry. So I think, to your point, Helen, the reason to have some kind of limit is because otherwise they wouldn't put any residential.
Okay, yeah.
That's the fear, but
Yeah.
So how about we raise the maximum up to like 75 or something?
I would be fine with
What number, is that number you were thinking of?
that. No, I was thinking around 60, but 75 is fine with me.
Yeah.
From Adam back there, or Fran?
Could a higher percentage be obtained via a special permit as opposed to having it spelled out? If we chose 50% as a maximum, under the following special permit requirements, could they file for a special permit to have a higher percentage of commercial?
I would think that would add a layer of complexity. This is already pretty complex. I would tend to not do that. But,
So we'll,
So one concern would be, are they would some of these restrictions dissuade people from using the bylaw?
right. That's why I want to kind of expand the commercial, so to give them that ability. And if you get a 3-story building and maybe the first floor is commercial and the other 2 floors, but then if you only have a 2-story building with the first floor is commercial, and you just, maybe the owner of that building wants his house over it or apartment, but we should allow, in the commercial district, I think we have to lean heavily towards the higher number. What were you thinking, Jim, for a number?
Honestly, I don't have a number. It's just that, my concern is that by playing with these percentages, it might make it not feasible to do something.
Well, expanding, like allowing more commercial, I thought that might open up the bylaw a little bit. If we set it at a maximum of 30%, then that means only 30% of the development can be commercial, but because it's all in commercial areas, and some of these we'd like to see developed
Let's see what.
to maximize the potential of the land use. How about you?
Because we have a minimum, so minimum is 25%. And if they do more commercial, because that's what we're talking about, so they have to have at least 25%. And then the other part of it too, we have some conversion. So you have existing property, and if you're coming in to convert it to mixed use, meaning housing and commercial use, I don't know, I'm just trying to think through it a little bit here.
Mr. Chair? We spent so much time looking at specific receiving parcels. Can we look at that map and see what makes sense? Like, maybe there's areas that would make sense to have 2/3 commercial and 1/3 residential, or, you know, if it's the 25% max, the Mamma Mia's, does it make sense to change that to 25% commercial and 75% residential? You know, Fran always goes with the density. How much more density is that going to add there if it's a 25-75?
Right.
So I think since we have such specific properties, let's use those properties to look at the numbers.
All right, so one of the buildings, and I use Mummy's a lot, so I'm going to use the Frosty Dog. That's a currently unused commercial space or village business district, but there could be people living upstairs as an owner business, and that's going to leave probably 60% of it commercial, and then the 40% residential, and that's only a 2-story building. So
So then that right there makes sense to plan for a more commercial use on that property. So then that would justify having the higher maximum.
right.
So, I mean, if we look at the actual properties we picked, now we can really see what would make sense there, what wouldn't make sense there, the percentages. We've done a lot of the legwork. So right there kind of justifies or rationalizes a higher percentage.
But
And just because it's a 60% or 75% max doesn't mean they have to do that. That's just the door.
That-
Someone could come in and do the 25.
Because our
But
window's
that's-
very narrow right now.
Right.
I want to open that window up.
Yeah, so it's just a range. It's not a mandatory, you have to do 75%, you have to do 25. This is an acceptable range.
Right, instead of between 25 and 30, now you're up in your odds by going 25 to 75.
Yeah.
But and I'm not sure this is what you mean, but I'm not sure that we can make it 75% for this property and 60% for that
No,
property.
it's up to.
Okay.
It opens the range up from
Yeah.
25 to 30%, which to 25 up, and that would allow the developer a lot more.
No,
leeway,
I got that, but Jen was saying we should look at each property.
Oh, not like spot zoning, I just meant since we know what they are, maybe if we look overall, it wouldn't make sense based on the properties designated to try to have such a small
Oh, okay. I see what you're
range,
saying.
or, you know, just because we're not talking overall townwide, we kind of know the areas we're talking about now.
Yeah.
Right, 'cause
I think 75 seems reasonable. The whole impetus for having a maximum is the fact that like TDR is inherently mostly concerned with residences, right? So it doesn't make sense to have a TDR bylaw where you can just come in and do 100% commercial. It's almost a non-issue because then you're not then it's not a receiving area, you know,
Right,
so
right,
then you're
they're
just
not
not
rece-
using,
yes.
you're just not using the TDR bylaw at that point. So that's why 75 is fine, just,
Maybe 60 to 75 is what, you know, I'm just looking for somebody to make a motion in regards if they're in favor of this or not.
I would make a motion to increase the maximum to, how about 66%? I don't know, 2/3 sounds nice. Listen, it's totally, I mean,
Okay. I'll second.
66%.
I'll second that.
All right.
66% maximum, just for
We'll
clarity.
take a roll call vote on this.
So the,
Oh, wait, Jim?
just for the record, who made, Jen made the motion?
And Sarah second.
Sarah seconded, okay.
Mr. Holmes, if you would vote.
Adam Holmes says aye.
Mr. Meredith?
I think I'll say no, Mike.
Fran Mello says aye.
This is kind of a tough one.
I'm sorry, I should have opened it for discussion.
Yeah,
So anybody, like,
I did have some questions even
please, yeah.
before we voted.
Can I call back the vote and recall discussion, or? Okay, so that's what I'll do. I'll put the vote on hold
Yep.
and open it for discussion.
Okay. When you talk about commercial, does that mean, I know you were talking about the Frosty Dog, and I think there was some plans at one time to have a businesses downstairs and maybe apartments upstairs. Now, I think currently we can only go up 2 stories in Carver anyway. Is it 2.5 stories?
It's 3.5 in receiving areas, according to what we've got going.
Oh,
here.
okay, according to this,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, what about fire department requirements?
Pardon?
What about fire department height, building
I
height?
think the 35 foot is the standard height currently in our bylaw.
Oh, okay,
2.5 story.
okay. 2.5,
Oh, in the commercial zones, I think that's what it is.
2.5.
Jim flipping through it right now.
On the Frosty Dog, right now, don't they have a water issue, basically? Why they're not,
Well,
I don't think the Frosty Dog does. The vacant lot next to it is unbuildable without water, and I think that's the issue. Because I know the Frosty Dog used to be open for food,
Frosties.
Mm-hmm.
so they would have had water and,
I thought they had current issues, that's why they
oh,
kind of stopped the commercial use of it. They ran a farmer's market there for a while in the winter, and they did a small amount of food.
yeah.
Well, I think, you know, they do have water to the building, but I think they may have wanted to do something there where they needed increased water supply more than their well could produce, I believe.
Well,
I'm not positive,
They
but.
wanted to open a restaurant.
A
per
restaurant,
se.
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
So what I thought was happening was is they were going to have a restaurant downstairs and then apartments above stairs. But, you know, I may be wrong.
I thought that's what they
Yeah.
wanted to do too.
So in that case, it would be 50% commercial and 50% apartments.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah,
but with
something like that,
because it's
yeah.
got the sloped roof, it would
And
probably be a 60-40 split.
I know over the years, the planning board has always said that it's better to have the businesses down on the first floor and then the apartments, you know, above. But then when you come to, you know, I'm just thinking of different scenarios that we have in town as you come to where the church is here in the center of town, Carver Square, and you have Dee's Omelet Shops. So you have downstairs is all businesses. You have the post office and the package store and all those businesses. At one time, and they did have, and then upstairs at one time there were offices up there, and I worked in one of those offices up there. I don't remember have any apartments or anything being up there. So I was just saying that I'm just thinking that in some cases there was commercial. I don't know if you call office space commercial. I guess you would. But in that particular case, there was offices upstairs, and you know businesses and offices downstairs too. So it's just a thought. So as we're doing percentages here, but I think in anything new that happens, and if you go to any other towns, generally the apartments, they do have apartments above, and then the businesses are on the first floor in most places that I've seen.
But we wouldn't be stopping, and I just want to make sure I understand this. We wouldn't be stopping a commercial development that wanted to come in and just be commercial. It's just making sure that the commercial district
They
doesn't
wouldn't-
turn residential.
Right. They wouldn't be able to qualify for TDR credits if it was a strictly commercial enterprise.
But it lists in here commercial uses. It doesn't list, so under permitted uses on sending and receiving parcels, on page 2, under B, 1, 2, and 3, it lists commercial uses as allowable under the TDR, and I believe years ago when Mr. Hunter started this whole TDR thing on 58, it was to be able to also do in the commercial district, use the TDR to receive for commercial uses too. So are we doing both,
Well,
or are we only doing housing?
TDR, your credits for the TDR, as we're setting up now, are only going to be good for residential housing.
Okay, it's housing only. It has nothing to do with,
Right, yeah, you can't transfer credits to build a larger pizza
commercial
place or-
type of entity. Okay. So I think, I understand Jen's point of view. We want to, or what we were just talking about, we want to limit per lot the amount that moves from just commercial to commercial/residential.
Right, which is why we put in the minimum of 25%.
25.
Commercial. And now and we were using the Frosty Dog, if they closed off the upstairs, the building is so tall, and it's only 2 floors anyways, then it's still not gonna be a 50-50 split. It's still gonna be, there's more downstairs space than the upstairs space. So we want to be able to allow them to be able to do something along those lines too.
More than 50/50? So I guess my question is, if we're trying to make this mixed use, it's one thing with our current buildings that are already built and how they could be converted to both. But if there's some lots here, like next to the bank,
Okay.
where there's nothing but an open lot, are we going to force them to do something commercial there in order to also make it a receiving lot for residential?
Well, I think one of the concerns was the loss of commercial income to the town, and how our commercial spaces are just so limited, and that we want to not lose those to residential development.
So we are. The answer is yes.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
But that's what we're here to discuss. I believe there should be a minimal in the commercial zones
Okay.
in regards to that. Now, I think some of our are any of our receiving properties outside of business zones?
I don't
There
know.
might be a couple bordering on it. Off the top of my head, I don't recall.
I have one other question,
Yeah.
as we're kind of talking about all of this. Under E on page 2.
We were discussing this particular, okay.
But it's all part of this.
Yep.
So it says that, hold on. I guess my question is, if someone bought that lot, we'll use the lot next to the bank, and there was a back lot that we haven't on the map identified as a receiving area, but they bought that lot next to the bank, and they bought the back lot. And they merged it all into one. And now instead of having like a 10-acre lot, now they have a 30-acre lot. Because that lot is commercial, would any development that they, first off, would they be able to do that? Would they be able to buy back lots that are not labeled as receiving and merge them with a lot that is a receiving lot, have a parcel of land, and, you know, how would, looking at the map, what situation does that put us in?
Right.
And so that's question number one. And question number two is, if that lot was commercial, and now they've got a, say, 30-acre lot of land, they would have to develop 25% of it as commercial.
25% of the development,
Correct.
not necessarily the lot, but I don't think you can really merge two lots together and have it all be commercial. Jim might know the answer to that.
Yeah, because I think, the lots, or, the lot itself is, the frontage lot, the one that's on Route 58 is a lot that would have the commercial zoning designation, and then the lot behind it would be, typically, they're already zoned RA.
And someone could not come in and do that.
They couldn't.
And combine them into one parcel, and because the frontage is on 58, now it's under one ownership, it's one parcel, and they can't call it all commercial.
No, they can't call the entire thing commercial, because it's two different zoning districts. And we have split zoning districts. There's some parcels down that front on Route 58, and the first portion of the lot is in the RA district, and then the rear portion is in the planned forest commercial district.
So it's the opposite.
It's kind of the opposite, where the frontage part is RA,
Okay.
but I don't think they would be able to do anything in the part that zoned the planned tourist commercial district, because they wouldn't have the area and all the other requirements of that district.
Now, they could develop that rear lot under the subdivision control law or the town, the town.
But they can't make it a receiving lot by merging the two,
No, because it's specific to what the map.
to what we've identified.
Yeah.
Okay.
But couldn't they keep the front lot commercial and build the receiving houses or whatever, condos in the back, in the RA district?
If we haven't identified it on the map, it's not eligible, but that was
That
something we
was
talked
my
about,
question.
like this little house, neighborhood behind Mamma Mia's there. There's no reason that they shouldn't be able to put a little small thing out back and keep the front of the lot commercial, but, currently, there's no avenue for that in our.
Well, maybe we should designate it then, in case somebody does want to buy it.
Well, what I don't want to see is, I don't want to see a big developer come in here and scoop up the backlands and then find a parcel that gets them access into the backlands. That's what I'm concerned about.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what they would do anyways, So if someone has a piece of land and they want to try to develop it, they'll try to find an access way to gain access to a piece of property. So they might find a property that's appropriate zone, they'll buy it, and then they could do a development based on that.
So, Mr. Chair,
yes.
I just wanted to ask Chuck, you didn't like this percentage split? I just wanted to hear.
Yeah, just things on, all these modifications on these different buildings in town, naturally, they'd have to go to the current septic systems and all that, correct? They'd have to update. You know, if you're gonna have a restaurant, it's different than just residential, but if you're gonna add residential on top of the post office, again, and if those areas are suitable for all that, that was one thing. And myself, I'm not really keen on adding more residents to the town of units because of the school system and such, to keep control of the taxes.
Well, what we're trying to do is limit the building of houses in outside and kind of concentrate them inwards. And in this, we're hoping to be able to save those units. But yes, no matter how you break it down, we're offering incentives to the builders to kind of save certain.
Correct, well, you see that.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But
That ain't much of the land outside of town that maybe we're possibly trying to save. A good part of the town is wet, cranberry bogs and such, as we all know. which is not gonna be changed into residential units. You could say Wareham Street, these different places, yes, but there's nothing against single-family homes. But that's just my view. on it,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah, I like the town the way it is, you know.
Oh, we all do.
It really is.
But I guess I see your point, Chuck, but I think too that, I think was it called Coal Springs Cranberry, down on Cranberry Road? Whoever owned that, they offered it was 20 acres, they offered it to the town for $200,000. We didn't have the money. This was before CPA. So, you know, that some of that could go. It depends on who owns it. And if they're going to build houses, I guess my feeling is I'd rather see some of it be in condos above Plymouth Street, you know, in that whole North Carver area,
Yeah.
rather than,
We have not seen much condo development in Carver, really.
yeah.
No, I just don't think there's been much of a demand for it anyways, but I'm not that up on the market right now. Only out here in the more rural areas, I think you find them trying to squeeze the residential homes in wherever they can get four corners in, but yes, and that's one of the things about this is we'd like to see the development of more one-bedroom apartments, condominiums, houses, not only for age-restricted, but for the youth of our town. There's nowhere for them to go if they want to move out of their own house in this town. They got to move somewhere else.
Well, I look at some of the new developments like Santana Way and these different places, which are 2 units anyway, right? And most young people starting out can't afford that either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I look at how Middleborough is developed in Plymouth, and I'd like to hold off on Carver for a few years and keep it as it is. That's just
Yeah.
my view on it.
Any further discussion? And if it's all right, we'll revote. Mr. Holmes?
Adam Holmes says aye.
All right, I'll say nay.
Fran Mello says aye.
Bruce Mackey says aye.
Cornelia, oh, I'm sorry. Cornelia Shea says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye. With
Jem
the-
Bogart says aye.
All right, 66 is our number. And then there was the other thing,
Well, Mr. Chairman, could we go back to 27XX
okay.
B2 and take out commercial uses if it's not going to be a standalone? So it says mixed-use buildings with residential and commercial uses underneath.
The same would be true for 1, is what I was thinking about, Fran, when we were bringing that up, because we're not doing exclusive residential or exclusive commercial. They're all going to be mixed if there's a minimum and a maximum requirement for commercial. So essentially, the only permitted uses would be mixed-use buildings with residential and commercial uses.
No, so just to clarify before we further discuss, you could, just because there's a minimum and a maximum doesn't say that they're attached. That's just like the overall floor area of the entire, like on a parcel, right? So it's not speaking to their physical proximity or detachedness or attachedness. So
Okay.
yeah, it's just up to
Yep.
the characteristic of the development you guys want. If you want every single TDR that comes across the desk to have both in one building, or if there's a little more freedom that, hey, you could put an like a pad site on part of it and then have the residences kind of surrounding or something like that.
Right, like say Mamma Mia's was all one lot with the little development behind it.
Yep.
We'd want to allow 2 separate uses.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Clarification on the motion, was it recommend 66%
Maximum.
maximum commercial use?
Yeah.
Right, and as you were saying with the rear lots, we want to encourage, I'm happy enough, that's a nice little neighborhood back there, it's out of sight, it didn't really impinge on the commercial aspects of the property. Mamma Mia's is there, so I think that's something we'd like to encourage too. But I see what you're saying, like you wouldn't want somebody buying a 30-acre rear lot and using the commercial as an access way to get to it. And
Yeah.
So are we leaving on 27XXB1, we're leaving 1 in townhouse condominiums and multifamily dwellings?
yes, because this will allow them to build separate.
Okay, good. No, I'm just checking.
I'm confused by that.
Well, if Mamma Mia's was all one lot, you could build the Mamma Mia's out front, and then you could build the residential out back like they have there. And then it's two separate buildings. It doesn't necessarily have to be incorporated into the same structure.
Or if the Mamma Mia's lot was vacant at the moment, they could come in and build condominiums or multifamily structures without commercial, right?
Which is what I thought we were trying to prevent, right? Is
Yeah,
taking out
it has to have a minimum.
residential use.
Okay,
It's got to be a minimum of 25%.
Yeah.
okay.
But we're not going to allow any of these receiving areas to have single families.
Well, single-family homes or?
Yeah, because this is talking about townhouse,
Okay, yeah, no.
condominium, multifamily.
No, right,
Back to
that's
the
it.
townhouse definition, right?
Yeah,
Yep,
you're right. We do not allow single-family homes as such. Because we're trying to get more people in a smaller area
okay.
and save the larger areas.
I don't understand it, but okay.
That's the thing. These things get so difficult to understand that it's hard to use these bylaws. You know, when I first thought of the TDRs, when we started this thing, I mean, so you're going to have somebody, say, in South Carver that has a environmentally sensitive piece of property, and he's got to come to the board and demonstrate how many houses he can put on that. It would be single-family homes, I would imagine, if it's in an RA district.
Yeah.
And then he has to hook up with somebody on the other end of town that has a receiving area of land. And somehow he's got to buy this or partner with this other person.
Yeah, that's the part that's not clear.
I had questions.
So,
Yeah.
so I just thought about it that it was another raw piece of land. But then when you're talking about, okay, we included like the small shopping plazas that we have here in town. Well, then this developer, this landowner I guess he'd have to partner up with a building or a developer. Then they'd have to, discuss something with a person that owns a plaza. And so it's coming in, and then they're gonna have to reconstruct the plaza. So it's coming into a real complicated situation. So I just thought that the way this would go is we can build 10 houses here in South Carver. It's an environmentally sensitive area. So under the TDR bylaw, you get so many more units, additional units as an incentive. And so then you go to North Carver, and then you might have a farmer or somebody that lives in a receiving area, has a raw piece of land, and so those units can be built over there. So it's kind of like a simple transaction, maybe, But boy, when you start going into other things, it becomes complicated. I don't know how
Yeah.
this would be used, really.
It's like your summary of like the basic mechanics is perfect. That's exactly the way that it works in like, a basic level. Sometimes what's set up with these is a TDR bank, right? So say the example, like the 10 units, right? If there wasn't a place to put them right away, that sending area applicant could say, hey, I still want to I want to bank these credits. So then they're available for another developer to purchase from that bank. So that's like the intermediary step there that helps with the timing of everything. And that's kind of like the most that's that's a complicated aspect of TDR for sure, because it's like these credits, for a while they kind of exist in this just like our money in our bank account, right? It's just numbers on a paper for it's kind of like a concept until they're actually put on a receiving area. But they are available to like buy from that TDR bank. And it is something that I want to ask you guys about later, the fact that there is a lot in this bylaw. So adding kind of like the commercial into it, it's fine, but it adds another layer of complexity. Allowing, like, trying to hook in the affordable housing components, that adds in another layer of complexity. So it might be worth having a conversation about trying to strip away any of that that's not absolutely core important, because the purpose of this whole thing really is to redirect development. And then you can add a bunch of pieces on it, but it does make it a little bit more complicated.
But I also go back to when we started these meetings back in September or October, and two things I want to say. First off, the reason we even have TDR in front of us is because the developer wanted to use it for a big project in Quinton. And then when we started talking in September and October, it was, you can make it for your town. And I think that's exactly what we've done. We walk through all the steps, and where we want it and what we want out of it is more development down in the village district, and we want to leave the outside of town the way it is. We don't want the Red Brook. We don't want Pine Hills. If we're going to do TDRs, then we want it to be focused in the area where we feel that if the condominiums are there or if the townhouses are there, then they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
Now, what I don't understand is if you do I still go back to how many units are we going to end up looking at once we take all the sending areas? And what does that amount of units do when you think about putting them in the limited receiving areas that we have identified?
So,
That was the blue section of our paper, so we're moving.
So it just occurred to me that maybe what we should be doing is not having a minimum commercial area. No, not having a minimum, let me start over. That we should allow them to build condominiums, say, on a lot up in North Carver with no commercial at all. Because otherwise, if some parcel of land has the potential for 150 house lots, wouldn't you rather see 150 condominiums up north? And if the guy he may not be able to have a commercial on the bottom. He may just want to build a big condominium building,
I don't think we've identified a single lot of land outside of the 58 Village District, other than the green.
Yeah.
The green.
And Spring Street.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. That's the problem.
So there's no place to put this.
Well, that's what
Different
I'm maybe
development.
suggesting, that we not force them to actually put a piece of commercial on the bottom.
Right.
Maybe let them build the whole lot. Say if Mamma Mia's was empty.
Yeah.
Well, Connie.
No, I know.
So I'm talking about condominiums, so that they could have an age restriction, which is, I think Chuck was concerned about school-age kids, too. I mean, we don't really need to build another new school right now. I'm just trying to think.
We're trying to figure this out for our
how do you
town.
get all those, say someone down in South Carver has 150 units. Well, where the heck are they going to put them up there unless we allow them to just make that a lot X, just a bunch of condominiums, maybe age restricted, so we don't have the,
If we, right, so for instance, with age restricted, like if you put it permanently deeded in, it would be the same as cash positive into this town.
oh, yeah, no, and I know that. So, but my point is, why are we requiring them to put a minimum of commercial on that lot?
We can give the
We need
exception,
commercial.
maybe?
Because then we're changing the zoning from commercial to residential, but
No, the underlying zoning is always residential anyway.
But if you're letting someone use commercial property strictly for residential, that kind of changes it. But the example of the 150 down south to up north doesn't apply, because to Fran's point, and I was going to ask you guys to get to this, like, the way I'm reading this, it's, you know, there's a multiplier, so 150 down south is going to be, what, 225 up north? You've been asking, you know, what are we looking at density-wise? Can you get into the numbers and stuff here, the options? Because I thought that was like the main topic tonight, was figuring out what numbers we wanted to use.
Well,
to
that's my
calculate
concern.
density.
And where do they go? Where do we put these?
Yeah, so let's, because right now it looks like, you know, you got, what, if you can do 18 now, then up here you'd get 27, that's like a big change.
36 if you use age restricted or.
Yeah, see, that's like big, that's double,
Yeah.
you know, and kind of like, you know, Chuck had referenced, that's a big change. You're getting double the houses, that's a lot. But, so can we talk, like, numbers and flexibility on those numbers?
Absolutely, yeah. So those were just pulled from the existing bylaw, that whole scheme of 1.5 for senior or affordable versus senior and affordable is 2. So that's, yeah, that was all pre-existing. So, I mean, you guys are free to suggest totally new numbers. All right, let's take one parcel as an example. So this guy up here, right?
What page are we on, please?
Oh, I'm just using an example on the screen.
She's got the actual map that we did up.
So it's gonna be the blue sections, I think, starting on page 3, Fran.
Yeah. All right, so this guy right here, there's not much wetlands or of any kind to speak of on this parcel that is 120 acres.
That's our urban renewal project parcel, so we should probably pick another one.
Or actually just use that for numerical
Yeah, use it
purposes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, so the difficulty of doing any of these calculations is that, of course, there's going to be areas for roads and for different infrastructure. And of course, now we're adding the commercial component, so it's not just talking about units. But if you just take, and this is about as sophisticated as we can really get, unless you want to use some kind of like assumption, like 10% of that area is going to be for roads. Like if you want to plug in a number like that, whatever you think is right for Carver, we can do that, and it'll bring the units down a little bit. But basically, you know, you look at a parcel like that, that's a lot of land. The NULA basically is setting up, the NULA is like this big, it sounds like this big calculation, but all it's basically saying is we're going to allow you to have 6 units to the acre on an upland, right? So that's a density of 6 units to an acre. When you look at 120 acres times 6, that's a lot of units, right? So that's, yeah, it's almost, you know, almost 700 units for something like that.
So you can only do what is there. I mean, if there's only so much land you could send these additional units to, then that's it.
Right, correct.
Yep.
And that was a problem in the old bylaw, is that the calculations like weren't matching each other. It was like compounding and not clear that like if you have a receiving area, it's only so big and it can only take so much, and that this is what you have to, it has to match, or you have to bank them. You know, it's either you can put them on the parcel or you can't. You have to put that share into the bank for a different project on a different receiving parcel.
Maybe we should make it, if you have 150 units down south, you can put 150 units up here and forget about the multiplier. I don't know.
There's then kind of no incentive to use it.
Oh, okay.
Well, the thing is,
Well, how about a really tiny
Well,
multiplier?
I mean, that's a huge multiplier, that's big. Can we use Connie's favorite Mamma Mia's as an example, so it's a little more, I mean, that's huge. Can we just use Mamma Mia's for a real example as to
Right.
what we'd actually look at?
Because we also don't have the septic systems, so in town, and that's something that would have to be built, so I think the number 6 is coming from a more urban area, and I
Yeah,
think that's
that
something
could be.
we have to.
Mhm.
I think a number like 4 still provides a lot of incentive, and then at that point, you couldn't have, so you get a 3 acre, 12, at the most you could have is 24 on 3 acres, as opposed to 36.
Yeah, that's better. It's still a lot.
Still a lot,
It
though.
is still a
That's-
lot, yeah.
If you remember a couple of sessions ago, remember when we were talking about this, you were doing the map and you were looking at specific areas. We talked about carrying capacity, which is where, Helen's saying, you gotta kind of match up. Is it too much? What can this portion of town absorb? Because if you don't have the utilities, you're talking about extending utilities. This came out of the discussion, Sarah, you brought up going to South Carver. All that land down there, you said it'd be great, you could put this, and this there, but you'd have to extend utilities to do really dense development, because it wouldn't accommodate septic systems because of the nature of the land. So
Right.
that's why you have the map, and the value of the map is that you guys know Carver. And you know the carrying capacity of certain areas too, so.
Bill, I got a question. At one point, I know, because I think a lot of these bylaws, the TDR plus the Planned Neighborhood Development bylaw, were those adopted about the same time Makepeace was looking at
They were.
developing down in South Carver?
They were. I'm pretty sure.
And so probably some of these numbers were based on, I think pretty extensive areas down there. I don't know how many acres.
3,000.
3,000 acres just within Carver
Just
itself.
Makepeace. Just Makepeace.
Just Makepeace, but Makepeace and Carver, right?
In Carver,
In
3,000
Carver,
acres.
Okay. And so, and then that was probably the numbers were generated to provide incentives to Makepeace to direct
Yeah.
the development into another area.
I bet that's what it was. Yeah.
And then with those large expansive areas, they could also do their own kind of community septic system, and then have, maybe multiple properties off of wells. And so that was probably part of the reasoning behind some of these numbers on there too. All right,
Yeah.
what would incentivize Makepeace to move them out somewhere else?
Yeah.
And some of the other larger landholders.
So can we pick just a couple random properties along 58 and see what the building capacity is to figure out a working number?
Yeah,
Because it sounds really big.
give me
as
a
is.
parcel.
Just any random one that is in a receiving area. Surprise us.
Which one is that? Oh,
Who's-
that's,
Right
Who's
here
that?
on the corner.
What's that?
The one right here on the corner,
Oh.
which is on,
Is that the cemetery?
It's receiving as is.
Is it right here on Center Street? Next to the,
The Forest?
sorry, I
I
can't.
think that might be Center Street, and then to the right is maybe that dollar store property.
58.
oh, yeah, I see what you're
Oh,
saying. So, yeah,
Linton.
Linton. That's the dollar store
Yeah,
property.
that's a dollar store property.
That,
Yep.
but isn't that, why don't you just clicked on, isn't that the cemetery?
No, the cemetery's up Linton Street.
That's the cemetery, the one on the right of it is done now.
Yeah. But what if you go,
Oh, you're right.
but what if you go in between the island between the two roads?
Hold on.
We'll find out.
Okay, yeah. So we should remove that one. So this one right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's across the road.
I think that the bigger one next to it was,
So the vacant lot is-
okay, I see what we're looking at.
Yep. So that has an upland of 1 acre, which makes sense that you would have 6 units to the acre. 'Cause
Unless you put age-restricted affordable houses, then you could fit 12.
Yep.
Then again, that assumes you have the septic capacity and then the water capacity on that lot to do it. Or they would have to pay to extend the water line up.
So if that was a single-family house, and I know it's not, but this is just the way my brain works, could one house go there? Okay, so then if one single house couldn't go there, and we're talking about putting 6 or 12 little units in there, to me, that's a lot.
They couldn't there though, unless they acquired the adjacent property.
Right, but just hypothetically,
Because you need these 5 acres, so.
Not if you're in the village zone, though.
Or if you're on 58 with frontage, yeah.
like 12 there is a lot, so whatever multiplier is being used, in my opinion, is way too high.
I think so too.
How much are the two properties connected to it? Because theoretically, they're all owned by the Frosty Dog.
These four?
Not the top
first-
one.
Not the top one, but those three. So you got 1 acre on the bottom.
Just shy of one. Just over one. So three, pretty much 3 acres.
So that was like the example she gave us in our book. So those 3 properties, if they had the water and the septic, could, as it stands right now, put as many as 36
On 3 acres.
on
Yeah.
that 3 acres.
Well, they would have to,
But they're limited by the water and the sewer.
well, they'd have to
Yes.
have one of those big sewers, the 9,999 gallon one.
But it's all I mean, money talks. If someone's gonna make money, they'll put it in. So I'm just looking hypothetically in perfect conditions, that's how much could go there. I haven't seen this other places, and I'm just pulling numbers out of the hair, but like I saw 1.5, I was like, okay, maybe that's reasonable. But like 6, that's so much to me.
But, so,
I'm-
right, so if the multiplier was 4 instead of 6.
That's still, to
Then-
me, that's so much.
Yeah.
The incentive, don't build here, we'll give you 4 times as many up there, to me is just unfathomable.
4
Well,
times.
especially since there's not a lot of area to build them.
Like,
Yeah.
to me, I was having a hard time wrapping my head around, we'll let you build double. If you can build here, please
we-
don't build here, we'll let you build double the amount up there. To me, even that just sounded like a lot.
We already allow that under certain ones, right? The townhouse, the development lot has a much higher density. Conservation subdivision lot, we give them a much higher density too.
Yeah,
This
but they
conservation
have to have 20
subdivision-
acres.
The conservation subdivision actually cuts down on the number of house lots and shortens the road.
Well, we give them increased density and it does help the developer in lesser infrastructure and more targeted building area.
Yeah, but they usually build fewer houses and sell them for twice the amount because because it's a conservation subdivision. That's how Captain Perkins Drive got built.
I thought that I thought they were allowed more houses on a conservation sub.
No, they're just closer together.
Well, I know that, but,
Because you're allowed to, instead of a 60,000 square foot lot, you're allowed to
Build
put the houses
per
on a
new lot.
30,000 square
Correct.
foot lot.
Yeah.
mhm.
Or 1/2 of whatever the zoning district is.
Right. But they tend to build fewer
Then-
actual houses.
Then you have to give back open space.
And you protect some of the open space, and they like it because it shortens the road, which makes it cheaper. And they sell for more.
If I just could say
Please,
something.
please.
I was thinking about this last week, and we know we're talking about density and, talking about this one specific lot. And I would like to talk to the Board of Health or somebody. I mean, I just don't understand how you could put 30 units. I mean, first of all, you have to have a distance between the septic system and a certain amount of distance between the septic system and the well.
150
And
feet.
if you're going to have both the well and the septic on the property. For 30 units, you're going to have a lot of septic area. It's going to be a huge septic field. I'm not sure, I mean, there are innovative septic systems where you can cut down on the size because you have stuff that cuts down, takes stuff out of the septic to purify it more. I don't know if that can be done in new construction in Carver or not. I know the towns that I worked at, if you have something existing, you have to use a conventional septic system. Oh, no,
No,
But no, if it's existing and, well, I don't want to get too complicated.
they can
but if
use
it's
the
new,
newer kind, it's
yeah.
just very expensive, so
Yeah,
most
right,
people
it
don't.
is, it is. But it can be done. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
the sewage can be treated, I guess, and so it would cut down on the field.
Mhm.
But I would like to know if this stuff could be built, you know, I mean, that is also a limit to what we can do in Carver, because whereas if you take a town that has both town sewer and town water, so you're kind of unlimited in the size of what you can put in a lot. You could fill it up with 100 units.
That's
In
the-
Carver, you can't do that.
That's what keeps our town with
Yeah.
its rural character, because you can't do that.
And just if I could make one other point, you know, I know from, people don't like to talk about the big developers coming into town. That's like, you know, people just don't want to hear that in Carver. But in order to do some of this, to build some of these projects, I mean, that's going to happen. It's just not going to be just an ordinary carpenter outfit that's going to come in and build these units. It's going to have to be, you know, big-time developers that have the expertise and the money to do this, because when you're talking about bonuses, you know, bonus units on lots, you know, part of that is that, you know, as I was thinking, so, you know, I'm a cranberry bog owner and I have 100 acres, and so maybe a developer has to come in. To me, if you're a cranberry bog owner, it'd be easier just to build a subdivision and not go through this. Unless you're a developer that comes in and you know that this cranberry bog owner wants to sell this property and that you can get bonus lots, but you have to have a lot of money and you have to have a lot of lawyers and you have to have, because you gotta do double engineering. You gotta do engineering on the first lot, you gotta do survey and engineering on the first lot, and then if you find a second lot, you gotta go through the survey and engineering on that lot. And so it's very expensive to do this type of development. So I guess that's why the thought was to give such incentive. But then you give the incentive and then you go, I don't really know if they can do that, because we don't have the utilities here. We don't have the wells, and we don't have the water, and we don't have the septic. So I guess that's just something that everybody has to think about.
Well, take for instance the property that we were looking at. They were considering running the water line from across the street over to that property. And then what you're looking at is, then it's just about the septic. And then you're looking at a potential 30-unit building on the 1 acre and having 2 acres of engineered septic. So it can be done. But yes, I see your point, but it's not 30, it's not gonna be 30 houses, and I suppose we don't allow for high rises in this, if I remember.
No.
8 is the maximum. So you could put 2, 3. So then you're looking at 24, something like that. And then it'd have to be mixed use. You'd have to have 1 and 2 bedrooms and the occasional 3-bedroom in order to be able to get that septic system
Just have
passed.
a point to make. There is a limitation on the apartments over commercial, so I'm just getting to that part. The gentleman who owns that property, you know, he's come in before to talk to us about that, but if he's following the accessory dwelling units above commercial development section of the bylaw, 2270.
Jim, could you use your mic?
Oh,
Sorry.
sure.
Thanks.
So under section 2270, let's see, commercial buildings may be permitted a base density of 2 accessory dwelling units to be located on the second floor. Additional accessory dwelling units may be permitted in the special permit application by the transferring of development rights. The number of accessory dwelling units that may be permitted shall be determined by using the total gross square feet of the first floor commercial space multiplied by .001. The maximum number of accessory dwelling units allowed for any commercial building shall be 15. So there is a limitation in the bylaw. But, if you're in one area and in the sending areas are generating a lot of credits, then you're gonna have a flood of credits with no place to put them, because we have very limited areas to put the credits in.
So maybe we should make the multiplier a lot smaller than we were thinking. I mean, because it's where you're gonna put them. And I just wanna point out again, too, that if you require them to put commercial in there, that's not gonna work for everyone. But like those 3 lots we were just looking at, if it was all condominiums, hey, they've transferred all their however many credits up there and didn't have to find a business that wanted to be downstairs. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
like we mentioned before, I think maybe for 55 and older, that would or should be a viable option.
Mm-hmm.
But for general, I would lean against it. But
Well, no, I'm all for putting commercial under apartments. Don't get me wrong, especially right on 58. But I'm just saying that supposing someone can't find a commercial to go there, are they going to throw up their hands and there goes Meadow Street, or whatever it is?
I would.
Well, what if we required commercial, the 25, minimum 25, if it's in a village or commercial district?
Yes.
And if any of the receiving areas are in RA, it doesn't require having commercial.
I like that.
Yeah, I think there's only 3 parcels that applies to.
Oh, well, yeah, we can't require commercial and residential.
Right.
But I would also think that maybe we could consider waiving the commercial requirement for 55 or age-restricted houses.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that, too.
But I also think what Fran said makes sense, too. Any lots just along 58 that are or happen to be zoned commercial as well as
Yeah.
residential, if they can't, we don't want to keep them from building, their 30 condos right there on Main Street if they can't find a commercial use.
And to the point about the commercial below and the apartments above, in a lot of the cities where they've been trying to work on that particular model, having, the apartment building with ground floor retail, in a lot of cases, they've struggled to fill those retail.
Yeah, there's that, too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you might in Carver. I mean, we're not, Quincy, we're not a big city here, so, we might not be able to fit those things in. Well, you need more population in Carver, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can waive commercial for residential only. We've got a commercial district because we need to bring those tax dollars in. So for me, it would be, if it's in the village or if it's commercially zoned, it has to have the commercial component. But if it's if it's on 58, but it's not in the commercial zone, then it doesn't have to have the 25%.
Yeah.
I just would not want, again, someone coming in and utilizing the bylaw for something that works for them that's going to hurt us long-term.
Right. Good point.
The other thing, too, you could limit it. So for those properties that already have a commercial use on it, is that you couldn't get rid of the commercial use. You
Right.
could just add a residential component to it, at whatever percentage,
We're seeing it happen over in Plymouth with the Independence Mall now. That mall was struggling and Sears sat empty. So what are they going to do? They're going to put in 400 units.
High-rise. Yep.
In addition to the commercial property that's already there, rather than supplanting it. Now that's going to revitalize both the mall and, that area is going to have a lot more residential use.
That's kind of my whole thought about TDR to begin with. I know back at the first conversation we were talking, I remember saying something like, let's look at the properties in town that we would want to improve using TDR. Now I almost feel like it's changed to, let's get density here and there. Let's find a place for these condos, almost like we're forcing density, where my original approach or my thought process was, if this is going to be used for our town, if we want to consider density, let's have it improve places that it would be good for, not let's look for places where we can have higher stuff. Because I would love to go around the room and see if there's a 6 multiplier in here now, and to me that blows my mind. Because we all have brains and I respect us all. I would love just an easy go around. What number makes sense to you in a very basic level? Because a 6 times multiplier to me is insane. I mean, maybe, again, off the top of my head, without doing tons of math, max 2. I would just love to know if I'm totally off base than everyone.
Where did that 6 multiplier come from?
It's been in there for a long time, and we think it came possibly from the days of when Makepeace was
Came from AD Makepeace.
Oh.
holding a threat over our heads.
That's ancient history. And
Yeah.
Right.
when we started doing this, I said, this bylaw has existed since basically the dawn of the century.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of these things have been carried through, and the concept has been discussed,
Yeah.
but it had never really been touched
Right.
until it was discussed again during the master plan meetings, but
Yeah.
still had not significantly touched, so.
So it's
Guys-
never been used on a, I'm sorry, Bill,
No,
you
no, go.
finish.
No, that's right.
It's never been used on a very basic level. Just, again, super basic, take everything out. What do you guys think is a reasonable level for density if you can build one house over here, but we're gonna incentivize you over here? How many do we wanna let you have? Just, what's your multiplier? Because I'd wanna know if I'm totally off base.
1.5.
So like,
That's just me.
10 houses would become 15. Okay. Can we do that? Sorry.
And see, I agree with that number for houses, but I don't agree with that number for townhouses, because townhouses are already extremely dense.
Okay, good. So let's talk, okay, so what's your number for a house? Do you have a townhouse number, Sarah?
A townhouse number?
Yeah, if that was a single family, she said she wants townhouse. Do we have, what's your other, do you got another number?
I'll have to think about it. What's your number, Fran?
For a townhouse?
Yeah.
Probably, and I don't think we have the land, but probably 0.5.
Okay.
So if you could have 20 units, then maybe you get 30.
Okay.
So that would be your 1.5, right?
Yeah, 1.5.
Kind of the same thing. If it was
Okay,
10, yeah.
all right.
So you guys are totally on the same
Yep.
page.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not trying to take
No,
over,
no.
Sherry, you go for it. I'm just trying
I just
to,
want to, I want to, just to clarify right now, at 1.25 for affordable houses already doubles the density. So we're already giving them based on NULA, which is based on a 1 acre.
Yeah, that's
So
the other
it's
thing.
but that's
already-
for affordable housing only?
That's affordable, well, I'm using 1.25 because that's double. In
Can-
here, it's 1.5.
Can I try to help clarify? So it's 2 separate calculations. And we're talking about it as if they're the same thing.
Yeah.
There's the receiving area, and that is just saying, like, there's no multiplier there. There is in like a macro sense of like the underlying zoning allows for much less, but there is no multiplier on that. It's just, it's a density per acre calculation. So right now it's at 6 units an acre. So it's consistent for any receiving lot, anything coming over, only a certain density can be placed on a receiving area. The sending area is where the multiplier comes from.
Okay.
That's where you're generating your development potential. And so you generate at a certain multiplier, and then that can only, it can be accommodated at a certain density rate
Okay.
in the receiving area. So both are worth talking about, and I agree that for Carver, both seem high, but they're 2 separate, so I just remember to take them separately.
Okay.
So like in a receiving, what's good, what's reasonable, and then what's reasonable to generate if you're trying to save a piece of property.
So are you suggesting then that we change the multiplier for the sending area?
Well, what's the multiplier for the sending area right now? 1.5. So that's a little more than double density right there.
I don't think I think I'm suggesting that should pretty much remain to incentivize this whole process.
Okay.
But that the density allowed, like how you translate that into the receiving area, that the carrying capacity of those receiving parcels, that maybe is what is worthy of adjustment from 6 units an acre, which might seem high,
Yeah.
to something like 4 or 3, something a little bit smaller. But then again, those aren't necessarily townhome densities. So maybe it's worth returning to the conversation about single family lots. For example, I live on a 10,000 square foot lot. That's a quarter of an acre. That's like 4 units an acre, right? So, but that's a single family home, and like a big single family, like a nice one, you know? So like, that's a different conversation. Then maybe you do want to allow for some single family development if that's the density that you're talking about in the receiving area.
I don't think you could build a single-family home on a quarter-acre lot unless you have a shared septic system
yeah.
somehow.
Right.
I mean, if you're gonna have your own well and your own septic, I know in my neighborhood, we're all half acre, and that pretty much, you know, that's pretty much as small as you can get if everybody's gonna have a well and a septic.
Right, you wouldn't have the legal separation on anything smaller. You need the distance between the well and your septic, so.
Yeah, you need 150 feet.
Yep.
Right, and because we don't allow single-family houses, it's not gonna be 6 houses on an acre. It's gonna be townhouses, condos, or mixed-use development. But I can see your point, because we have to decide what the maximum, because if you were putting affordable and age-restricted houses on that 6, then you're up to 12 houses to an acre.
Right.
Well, not houses, 12 units.
Yeah.
And I'm furthering the confusion by saying houses. So.
Mm.
But then you're looking at maybe 2 buildings of 6 units.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that you wouldn't be able to fit that with septic in this town.
Well, I mean, I don't know what they're doing on Santana Way, but I'm sure they're using the largest shared septic system that they can.
I forget what they're doing on I think it is a shared septic. Yeah.
It would have to be.
And then they were gonna do wells, but then they decided to do town water there.
Mm.
So they're gonna get town water, so that kind of eased the situation with the
Right.
separation of the well and the septic. And that was why that for that particular type of development, that was it was one of the only areas in town that you could do that, because there's only a small amount of town that's serviced by a well
Yeah.
in North Carver. So that type of development really couldn't be done, and I know people were screaming 40Bs all over Carver, and but it can't be done. It can't be done generally because you just don't have you have to have a water service, and just don't have the separation, and you don't have the water, and there's a lot of reasons why, but that's the only reason that could happen in North Carver there. But I guess, you know, if I could, I know everybody's saying, well, you know, this should be the multiplier, this should be the multiplier. You kind of got to look at what it's going to cost the developer in order to, because if you do a multiplier that's too small, this will never be used.
Yeah.
So, like I said, you know, if somebody comes in and they're going to do this, they're going to have to engineer the first piece of land in the sending area, and they're going to have to do the same thing in the receiving area. So that doubles the engineering costs there. And I don't know what those costs would be. Of course, it would be greater for a larger piece of land. So I don't know, by going 1.5 or 2, I don't know what the multiplier would be to make it worthwhile for a developer to do this type of thing.
Well, if I could just point out, we did have people who wanted to use this bylaw.
We did have
and they
people-
couldn't because there was no map. So,
There was no map, yeah. And what I believe Well, there was all kinds of, they were gonna, they could, the property that they were looking at Silver Street was enough for, I believe, that they could do septic and wells for 6 homes, which were to be the 6 affordable. But then there was talk.
It was more houses, so the development plan, I think, if I remember correctly, was for roughly 20 units,
Okay.
of which 6 were not TDR transferred, but inclusionary housing transferred
Yeah.
from South Meadow Road.
It was a little complicated, but then it exploded when they said, well, 60 units could be here under the TDR. But in order for that to happen, they'd have to bring down the water from the North Carver water well. And there was other things that had to happen in order to do that kind of density. So,
Well, there were developers before them, Bruce. All I was saying was, I think, even if we lower the multiplier, if people want to do something, they'll do it.
well, yeah, if it's worth their while, they'll do it.
I think
yeah.
we're trying to make it a little less complicated.
But I can understand. I mean, people thought it was, what was the multiplier for over 55? It was, well, I guess the talk was 60 units or something like that. And I could see that was going to be startling to that area of town.
But you always go in really high, because then when you come back and I only want 20, everybody's like, well, we
Well-
warded off that other 40 units.
That's what happened. That's
Yep.
exactly right.
But there was different scenarios that had to happen there, and they didn't happen. Nothing happened. So it didn't come out to what they had planned. But in order, again, for something like that to happen, it had to be a big developer with a lot of money to maybe extend the water system, to be able to talk to other landowners and see if they wanted to contribute to extending the water system down to that area of town. Maybe a water tower. And so that would take a developer and their money to be able to do something like that. So that's why things get expensive.
Well, again, I think that the bylaws should be written for the good of Carver. Any given developer may not like it. There are other towns where they can develop. But I think I'm assuming here trying to make this work, but it has to work for us,
Yeah.
No, yeah, no.
not for the developer. I mean, if a developer likes it, then they'll use it. And we're not trying to make it more difficult. But on the other hand, I don't mean to sound rude, but we're really not here to help the developer.
Right.
We work with them once they get here, hopefully. And if it works out, it does. And if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Well, let's picture those 3 properties up there, and currently, as it stands for traditional development under the TDRs, that would be 3 acres, 18 units. Now, the problem then becomes, what incentive is there if they can only build 18 units on there to put in affordable housing or age-restricted housing? Not, because pretty much, I think for 3 acres, 3 6-unit buildings would pretty much max out the property due to the septic issues. And that's taken for granted that probably water would go in. So if that's what you can do, then what would incentivize them to put in over 55 or affordable? That's because if the multiplier was 3, then you're looking at 9 units, which is 3 units per acre, and then to incentivize it, if you want to make it affordable or age restricted, then you have the opportunity to go to the full expansion potential for that. But 3 times 6 is 18, double it's 36, and you you couldn't get 36 units in there.
Well, do you know that for sure? I mean, depends on the size of the unit. If they're
That's
one bedroom,
That is true, if you were building individual units, but I don't know that 3 acres could handle, I don't believe there's any way you could get a septic system to handle even 36 single unit buildings.
I know on South Meadow Road, just over the line in Plymouth, those duplexes, they're doing 4 units, I believe, for 1 septic.
Right, so then you're looking at,
yeah, that sounds about.
maxing it out at 12.
And I always think of what Fran has said, the overall picture of what's this gonna do to the town. So I know I said let's look at individual properties, so if we're saying 36 here, but now I'm trying to think bigger picture. 36 here, let's add it into everywhere. With that 6 unit per acre multiplier, that's gonna add up. I'm having a hard time being okay with the 6.
Right, if we had the sewer and the water, that'd be fine.
But even so, but maybe we could accommodate it, but do we want it? Like Sarah said, like, let's say we had all the infrastructure in the world and it could accommodate that. Do we want that?
Yeah,
Well,
well, the
I
one
don't think,
Yeah, one
in
of the.
my opinion, no.
No, I agree.
If we had the infrastructure, we wouldn't have a choice.
If we had the infrastructure, we wouldn't have a rural town anymore. We'd have
Right.
32,000 people.
Right, so,
I look at those parcels there, like, I keep getting hung up on this point, and that's why I brought it up earlier, the 5 acre parcel requirement. And maybe it was discussed at length in the 2 meetings that I missed, and I apologize to everybody if that's the case, but I don't necessarily understand why there is no minimum area requirement for those properties on Route 58.
Because they have access or frontage on 58, and then it's,
But why not set a minimum requirement? We have that ability, why wouldn't we set a minimum lot area requirement for those? I wouldn't want 20 residential units on
It
those
would-
lots.
it would be
I'm very
very-
familiar with those because I live, stone's throw away.
right.
I wouldn't want 20, never mind 36. So, to me, this TDR bylaw is not meant to squeeze 20 or 25 units on those 3 lots. Even if it could work with a treatment plant and water. So, I guess I don't, that section E of the bylaw to me is opening us up to a ton of potential development that we don't want because there is no minimum lot area requirement. I'm not sure I
Well,
understand the logic.
We did, if, there is a note here that we highlighted the known minimum area, because we did go back and forth on, do we have a minimum or not have a minimum? And we were gonna talk about it at the next meeting.
Yeah.
For the sending. For the receiving, we were pretty sure that, the board was pretty sure that, like, that made sense, because for the Mamma Mia's example, for example, then you, if you're talking about approving one little
Less-
parcel, you wouldn't be able to apply this, because it's less than
Yeah.
5 acres.
And then I get that. I wouldn't want 10 or 15 units on the Mamma Mia lot. That's not what I consider to be responsible growth.
Yeah, no, I don't either. No, Mamma Mia's is more, you'd think that maybe they put 3 condominiums or 3 townhouses above the thing, above the restaurant, the building itself, and that's 3. But, yeah, I know what you're saying.
Like, if that's a 2 acre lot, theoretically, they can do 12 units, right?
If it's a 1 acre lot, theoretically, they could do, tear it down and put 12 units up, yeah.
And that's not necessarily what we want, right?
and that's
No.
just base, that's not applying the age restricted and other stuff on
Right.
top of it.
No, that
Right.
that is. If it was a one, you're talking about a 1 acre property.
Yeah, that's,
So then the base would be 6
Yep.
units, and with if you maxed out all of your other overages, it would be 12.
because I just see a more appropriate number as being 2, but that's just me. It's an incentive. It can't overdevelop, but I definitely believe 6 is too high, but reaching a consensus
Yeah.
on it
I agree.
on a number is gonna be difficult. We can't just say 6 isn't the right number, but then not come up with something to work with it. So if I came in with 55 and older houses and wanted to put it on that 3 acre lot, what do you think the maximum number of units that you could get on that lot would be?
Well, I don't know that it's the maximum you can get, it's the maximum that works for us.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's a good way to look at it.
Okay.
Because that's like, what is
Right.
acceptable? You know, like, so say you have a 1 acre lot, what is acceptable for how many units on that 1 acre? And then backtrack it from there.
Well,
Because you could have 3 small 4-unit buildings on those properties that wouldn't be overwhelming or not necessarily unsightly or not fitting in with the rural character of the town, and you could have that 12 there, and that would, say, be the maximum potential using every possible incentive we gave you to get on that. And then work your way back, so that would make it 6 for 3 acres would be a multiplier by 2.
I would need to see an example. That's why I asked before about where this has been done, because I think, from my perspective, when I think of lot size, you know, I know what we have here in town is 60,000 square feet, which is 1 acre and a third. I can't picture 12 units on 1 acre. I just can't. So Santana Way, they've got the triplexes there. What size is the lot that the triplexes sit on?
You get the, can you pull that lot up on the thing?
Fran, just to clarify, I was
One.
talking about 12 units on 3 acres.
On 3 acres?
Yeah.
Okay.
It would work to 4 units to 1 acre, or most likely it'd be a building.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you do something like that, I mean, I'm just looking at this from the engineering perspective,
yeah.
because I, you know, was associated with that most of my life. But, you know, if you bring an idea to an engineering company, they'd have to figure the size of the building for the units that you wanted. You'd also have to figure out how many parking spaces you have to have out there. You have to figure out, you know, where your septic and well is going, you know, whether the parking can go over the septic or not, you know. So that kind of limits the density of the lot right there. And then, you know, then if you had, you know, screening requirements and stuff like that too, you know, so it all has to be kind of put together to see how many, but parking is a big thing, you know.
It's 2 per unit.
Yeah, you have, at least, and then you have an area for guest
Yeah.
parking and stuff like that. So, you know, that's a big part of it too. So, I mean, if you go through these housing developments, I've gone through a lot, like apartments in Weymouth and big places like that, and a lot of it's just parking area. I mean, you have big buildings, but you have a lot of parking area.
So,
Just a note, we have the 30-minute warning. We have the Finance Committee coming in at 7 o'clock.
You staying, Adam?
All right.
So, ready to go.
Then I'll ask the committee as a whole. We haven't heard from Chuck yet, but I would like to get a feeling, if it's not 6, what is the number that we can work with to get down? We can always change it in the final revision, or discuss it further, but I think we need to have a number set to look at. 1 for 1, 2 for 1, but there's no incentive at 1.
1.5.
yeah, 1.5.
So if you had a density of 4 units to the acre allowed on the receiving area, right? If you were to have a 1.5, if you're allowing the affordable or senior, you would then get to 6. If you were doubling it, you would get up to 8 units an acre. So is that maybe a reasonable place to start?
Is that at 1.5?
That is, when you're looking at the receiving, if you're starting with the NULA of 4,
Okay.
then when you apply those for the extra things like the affordable and the senior, you go from 4, then you're up to 6, and then you're up to 8 as a maximum.
Okay.
Yeah, for the 1.5 and then the 2. So that basically, like, sets your maximum density at 8 instead of at 12, where it was previously in the 6 NULA configuration. I wish I had like a whiteboard. I would be
Yeah.
writing on it.
It's still a lot to me, but for 8 to an acre, but, you know, it has to be reined in somehow, so, and plus I'm not entirely certain, unless you have a lot more than 3 acres, that you're not gonna be able to get 8 to an acre.
Well, so do you want to make the, do you want to make it fewer?
No, I'm open for a motion for a number. 1.5.
Or do you want to cap it at a certain,
Oh,
you know, you want to cap it at a certain amount, you know, like you say, in some, they're not going to be able to do,
right. But if you have 20 acres, then you'll have the room for the septic, and you'd be able to get in the maximum allowable. But, you know, what are we trading one house off for? Potentially 12 at this point, and that's,
Okay, so then I'll make a motion to change the 6 unit per acre density multiplier to 1.5 units per acre.
is that what we were looking at? No, you were,
No? Okay,
you
I
were
don't know.
looking, so I think what Helen's saying is the maximum density per acre is the 6.
Right.
Yeah.
Right now.
And we need to bring that maximum density down so that,
Right, I was trying to change that to 1.5. Isn't that what we were doing?
No, because our density now is 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let me show you the part in the
Yeah,
section of
where
the
are we?
bylaw that we're talking about here.
our density is 4? No, that was.
But on this hypothetical lot that we said we thought was okay.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't say that.
That, step 2R,
So on page 5,
On page
Right.
5.
and this is just considering the receiving parcel. So we're not even thinking about sending right now. This is purely what a receiving parcel, the capacity that it can hold on a density basis. Right now, it's at 6 because you're basically taking the upland, multiplying that by 6. That's basically like you have an acre, and you have a certain acreage, and you can do 6 units per the acre, right? So that's what we're talking about right now.
Okay.
Right.
It's then that, so that's what really is setting the density at 6 units per acre. And then layering on top of that, when we start to get into the affordable/senior stuff, that's what starts to balloon it up really quickly from 6 units per acre. And not that I'm saying that shouldn't be lower, maybe it probably should, but that's what is getting you, all of a sudden you're going from 6 to 12, because see that on page 6, that last paragraph, each transferred TDR credit that is to be multiplied is to be used for both age-restricted and affordable housing. So if you maxed out and you said, yep, every single unit I place here is going to be age-restricted and affordable, then you're allowed to multiply by 2. And so that's what balloons you from the 6 to all of a sudden it's 12 units an acre
Yeah.
because of that.
Yep.
So what about we change the number 6 on page 5 to 4?
Just for a quick example, the old church in North Carver that was done, that's 5 large units, right? 2 bedrooms, kitchens, living rooms.
yeah, that was done before me.
Oh, yeah, well, and they fit it all in that church, so I mean,
That's true.
it's not that it can't be done.
Well, it is kind of a tall building, though. I mean,
It is.
I don't know if that matters.
how many acres is that, though?
It's very
A half
small.
an acre.
If
No.
that, it's probably smaller.
Yeah, so
than-
I remember that coming before the planning board.
Yep.
I remember the septic, but they don't have access to town water there.
They do, yeah.
Oh, okay, so because of
That's
that,
what it was, yeah.
that's why, okay, that's why,
Because all their available land is used for
yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
They
that can't
barely have
happen.
room for parking.
Yeah, and then, yeah,
Ah.
yeah, it can't happen in all areas of
Right.
town,
Right.
so. But in that particular case, it did. I'm glad they saved the church.
I am
I
too.
mean,
Yeah.
I think it looks good. It was a good use of the property.
So-
I've seen that done in other places.
So,
Can we change the multipliers for the age-restricted and the affordable housing, or are they mandated?
they're not. No, you could go one standard straight-up house, 1.25 for affordable, 1.5 for 55, and then that would change all the
Yeah.
calculations too.
Because I feel like the unknown of this is our base value, but if you use this and this, it'll get a lot higher. That's kind of more the scare factor. Let's know exactly what we're
'Cause-
allowing
'cause
instead of.
1.25 multiplied by NULA is actually double, so you're already doubling the density there. And if you go up to 1.5 for over 55 or age restricted,
Right.
then you're not, it's not quite tripling it, but
Right.
if
A
you
lot.
had,
Yeah. So
Maybe it needs to be maybe additive versus a multiplier. So maybe you just figure, all right, we want, age restricted, you might get an extra number of, for each unit you would typically get, maybe if it's age restricted, maybe it's a 1-to-1, you get an extra unit, I don't know. And then you cap it instead of a multiplier.
so you're saying, for instance, for every 4 units per acre, we would allow them to put one affordable and 155 on top of that? Like,
But I think you're gonna get it so that some will want all over 55.
yeah, I
Wouldn't
think
want just
you
one
are gonna
unit
get
of over
that, yeah,
55,
for sure.
And then, figure out a cap.
So what about like 4 units per acre and none of this extra incentive stuff?
Well, I was gonna say, what about 3 units per acre and 1.5 and 1.5? So you're getting an incentive for affordable and you're getting an incentive for over 55. But what does that do to the numbers?
So I have actually a whiteboard, so let's look at it.
Yeah.
So say that, so start that again, so 4,
Did you say 3?
3.
Yep, well, do show 4 and then show 3.
So just like the way it is, so this is like the base, and then these are the extra fuzzies on the other side. So we have 6, 9, 12, right? Is how it is now. 5, 7, 10, 4, 6, 8. And this is all in units per acre. Here. So 3 times 1.5. So that would be 4 and 6.
Yeah. That's better.
2, 3, 4. So then if we start to mess with these, like say this becomes the max, like you're 1.5, and you do something like 1.25, then you're kind of at so then it's like
So the
4,
max with 4 would
5.
be 8
Mm-hmm.
on a over 55 per acre.
yeah.
Yeah.
But if you kind of nudge the direction, or if like 4 is the base density, 4 is the base NULA density, then you do the 1.25 for that OR situation, you get 4 and 5 units per acre, and then 1.5 for having affordable and senior, you'd get to a maximum density per acre of 6 units per acre. Which might still be too high, I don't know,
Yeah.
for you guys to decide, but that's.
Well, if we changed it all and just made the number 6 for maximum density per acre to 3, and then allowed them to double it for age restricted, and then would that leave just the same?
It'd be 3 and 6.
It would be 3 and 6.
Yeah.
So it would still leave the maximum density at 6, and it would be do more to encourage affordable housing and over 55.
Yeah, but we keep saying we want younger people to afford it here too. That's part of the master plan, and I've heard that said a bunch of
Yep.
times too. If we're
So that's-
encouraging age restricted,
No,
then you're
we would-
age eliminating a lot of the people that
Well,
you're.
we would-
how many times do we say our kids are being forced to move out of town?
Right.
I thought we were keeping, I thought the 4 was in there, the base is 3, and the 4 is the affordable, and the 6 is the age restricted. I mean, I think we're trying to keep the affordable in there, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but if we did a 1.5 for both age and affordable, then we're at 3 and 4. And
Right,
4 is affordable and 4 is age restricted. So it kind of evens that, both of those out.
I
Yeah.
don't think I quite understand that 1.5 and 1 point, I don't think I understand that scenario.
So that's on page,
When you do the multiplier.
on 6.
Yeah, but then you're doing the same thing, you're allowing the same, then you would just keep the or situation, right? Because you're really allowing for the same multiplier, just in 2 different scenarios. You're saying the max you can only have 4 max.
Mm-hmm.
You just happen to be able to do senior and/or.
And/or
Yeah.
affordable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you specialize, you get the 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
So,
In either
yeah.
direction, senior.
I like that,
Yeah.
yeah.
That makes it less complicated too. It's just like
does.
1.5.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right,
And then 3 an acre and 4 an acre is more stomachable
Mm-hmm,
when you think of it going places.
yep.
Make that motion, Fran.
I'll make a motion to change the unit NULA, let me see, step 2R on page 5. The receiving area's maximum development potential is equal to 3 times the NULA.
I'll second that.
any?
Should you include the part with the 1.5s?
I was going there after.
Okay.
Good. Yeah. Keep them.
Okay, so further discussion, we're changing the multiple by 6 to multiple by 4,
3.
3.
And that's on page 5. Mhm.
Any further discussion?
And that's just like per acre, because again, I'm still trying to wrap my head around single family versus, like, what if you have an acre of land? Do you calculate how many single families you could build on it, or how many townhouses you could build on it, and then multiply that by 3? Or is it just
No.
3 units per acre?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
all right.
the only thing you could have right now, because this doesn't allow single-family homes the way we wrote it,
Right.
you could basically have a 3-unit multifamily building.
Okay.
Further discussion? Seeing none? Adam?
Adam Holmes says aye.
Jack Meredith says aye.
Fran Mello says aye.
Bruce Mackey says aye.
Cornelius Shea says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Jen Bogart says aye.
I'd like to make another motion that,
Well,
on the
Can you give me
multiplier.
1 second to write?
Sorry,
I'm doing double duty here. Holmes.
I'm looking for the multi, oh,
Okay.
there it is.
Hewens. And Bogart.
So let me get this straight, what you're leaning towards is changing the multiply by 2 to strictly 1.5?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep,
For both. Mm-hmm.
okay. I'd like to make a motion to change the multiplier on 27AA to 1.5 for both affordable and age-restricted housing.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Did you want to use a specific number for that, the 1.5?
1.5. Right?
Okay.
Mr.
Could you-
Holmes?
Can you re-say your motion again, please?
Oops,
So I
sorry.
can get it.
I'll make a motion to change the multiplier on page 6 on paragraph 27AA
Third
for
par-
both age-restricted and affordable to 1.5.
Second.
0.5.
All right, any further discussion? Mr. Holmes, if you would?
Adam Holmes says aye.
Jack Meredith says aye.
Fran Mello says aye.
Bruce Mackey, aye.
Cornelius Shea says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Jen Bogart says aye.
All right, now, I know Jim will kill me if I don't do this, but I will accept a motion to approve the minutes from April 5th, 2021.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of April 5th, 2021.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I just have one correction I'd like to make, and I can give it to Jim. It's on the second to last page. The last paragraph, Ms. Bogart, then the first thing says, "I want the town to own the property." Could I change this to, "This could be valuable property to the town"? Because as written, it kind of sounds like I want to pursue that King Richard's Fair property. I'm not trying to pursue it from them, but in a given situation, I see the value in the property.
Yeah, that's true.
If
She
Ms.
did say that.
will
Okay,
accept
so-
that
I was
amendment.
Okay.
So you,
So this could be valuable property to the town, or meaningful property. I'm not trying to take it, but when we were looking at stuff that was meaningful, that seemed meaningful.
all right, so can you just say what you want to say?
This could be meaningful property to the town.
Okay.
Mr. Mackey, is that amendment acceptable?
Yes.
All right, I'm seeing no further discussion. Mr. Holmes?
Adam Holmes will abstain. He's not present.
Mr. Meredith?
In favor of yes.
I don't,
Oh, yeah, he wasn't here.
hold on. I just want to make sure I missed, oh, Fran Mello says aye.
Now, this is,
The fifth.
the 5th
Yep.
we're on, okay. Bruce Mackey, aye.
Cornelia Shea says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Jim Bogart says aye.
And, all right.
Then
I
who
will-
made the motion? Who did the second? Okay, Mackey.
Yep.
502.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jim, but I will accept the motion to approve the minutes of May 3rd, 2021.
As amended? Oh, different minutes, sorry.
Yeah.
We haven't amended that yet. I think, oh, okay, well, I'm good. Oh, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 3rd, 2021.
So here's a second.
Wait, can
Second.
Bruce do it even though he wasn't here?
Yeah. yeah.
Okay.
I can make the motion, but
Okay.
I'm going to abstain.
I'll second it.
All right. Any further discussion?
It has me listed as vice chair, and I'm not. I wasn't filling in for Bruce that day.
Noted.
No, it's supposed to be a comma between,
Yeah.
oh. Bruce was left out, so I'll just strike that.
All right. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. Mr.
Adam
Holmes?
Holmes will abstain.
Mr. Meredith?
Yeah. Fran Mello says aye.
I'm going to, Bruce Mackey abstain.
Cornelia Shea says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Jim Bogart says aye.
Thank you very much. I will
Thank you.
accept one more motion to close the meeting.
So our next meeting is going to be 6:14.
Check with Jim.
Says next meeting proposed 6:14.
That wasn't your vacation week, Jim?
No, that's after.
Okay.
Okay, so that's our next. Okay, make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All right.
Adam Holmes says aye.
Mr. Hurst says aye.
Fran Mello says aye.
Bruce Mackey says aye.
Cornelia Shea says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Jim Bogart says aye.
Thank you all very much, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Tony.